Welcome back. Technological innovations are boosting the transformation of the global economy and society as the 46th World Economic Forum annual meeting is being held under the theme Mastering the Fourth Industrial Revolution in Davos, Switzerland. Let's watch this.
A robot named Hubo, which can replace people to conduct search and rescue work in disaster-stricken areas, caught much attention at the Davos Forum. A report of the forum forecast that the rise of robots and artificial intelligence will overset the traditional labor market in the coming 5 years, leading to 5.1 million jobs to be cut.
You don't see it in front of the cameras so much, is the gradual work to remove the boring parts of white-collar work. This is a very hot topic.
Development of new technologies like robots, pilotless automobiles and 3D printing are affecting various aspects of people's lives.
It matters to everyone, and everybody should be interested in the question of the fourth industrial revolutions. It may on the one hand lead to remarkable progress and new opportunities as major developments are merged. Let's say big data with biosequencing can have consequences we're not even able to think about. Automation, for instance, will take away much of the need for cheap labor.
WEF founder and executive chairman Klaus Schwab pointed in his new book, The Fourth Industrial Revolution, that the revolution may bring a series of dangers like the expanding gap between the rich and the poor and worsening social inequality.
Innovation brings a series of social problems, for example, the moral and ethical problem. If we have robots with thinking abilities, the robots can fall in love, then how do we handle this problem? And the cyber attacking problem and the biochemical problem, and what changes will the repair of cells bring to genes and ethics itself? This may lead to another problem of information privatization and global cooperation, because the biochemical problem, once it appears, will exert a global effect.
The participants face an increasingly divided world, with the poor falling further behind the super-rich and political fissures in the United States, Europe and the Middle East running deeper than at any time in decades.
The global conversation surrounding clean energy as part of the climate change agenda continues here at the 2016 World Economic Forum. Speaking with Channel's business editor, Bosun Omofai, in Davos, Switzerland, the chairman of Hayes Holdings, Mr. Tony Elumelu, says Africa and indeed Nigeria must first use traditional electricity to meet its energy needs while the clean energy pursuit continues.
I'd like to say that speaking as an investor and somebody who also uses energy, where we are at in Nigeria and Africa at this point in time, we should really not be talking about clean energy or traditional energy. We should be focused on improving access to electricity for the country and for the continent. Where we are is really far behind. And as I come to Davos, my personal agenda is to see how we can all galvanize resources towards improving access to energy on the continent. If it's true clean energy, fine. If it's true traditional energy, fine. But the truth is we're at low base, a very low base, and we need much more than clean energy to meet the energy deficiency on the continent. Carbon emission in Africa is almost insignificant. It's less than 1.5%. In the West, it's about 17%. So when they talk about clean energy, it makes a lot of sense. Two is where we are at, people don't have access at all to energy. We have over 670 million Africans who don't have access to electricity. So let's come up a bit, then talk about this. Well, for me, let's use a combination approach. Both are very important for us. But what's important the most is let's have improved access to electricity, to energy in Africa. We have a gas-fired energy plant, and we generate about 650 megawatts of electricity with capacity to do 850. But we have certain constraints. And so for us, how much we invest in oil and gas, in energy power business is dependent on the enabling environment. We want to see the payment of our bills. We want to see reliability of gas and the pipelines. And so once these issues are fixed, we will, as private sector investors who are keen to make economic returns and also socially impact the environment, we would like to increase capacity. But that capacity is dependent a lot on what I just talked about.
That was Tony Elumelu, Chairman, Hayes Holdings, talking on the sideline of the World Economic Forum going on in Davos, Switzerland. 5 days after a deadly attack on Burkina Faso's capital by Al-Qaeda fighters, the people of Ouagadougou are assessing the political and economic damage of an unexpected militant assault. Burkina Faso swore in its first new president in decades last month. Many people hoped democratic transition would pave the way to an era of progress. Now, the deadly raid on Friday, January 15, when 30 people were killed by militant Islamist gunmen, the country's optimism has been shaken.
The attack exposed the government, only a few days old, to a critical security challenge that risked derailing its pledge to transform the economy of one of the poorest nations on earth. The new president's promised to improve access to water, healthcare and education, and signaled a break from the past last week by naming a cabinet packed with ministers with no ties to the former president. Cynthia Ohio, an analyst with the International Crisis Group, said the timing of the attack was not random.
The political context should be taken into consideration. And Burkina Faso is coming out of a fragile political transition after 27 years of rule by Blaise Compaoré. The new government was appointed a few days ago. The new president took office less than 3 weeks ago. So I think we are in a moment of political fragility. At the same time, it's also a moment of optimism because the elections went well, and people were hoping that stability would finally be restored.
While neighboring Mali has been subject to a growing campaign of militant assaults in the past year, including one in a hotel in the capital in November, until last week, Burkina Faso had been spared a major attack. President Kabore and his ministers have taken to the airways to reassure the public, investors and potential tourists that the government can face down the threat.
Despite the difficulties, the Burkinabe people will not give in to terrorism. We will remain mobilized to fight it with the means available, and we will make it.
In the days to come, France is set to play an important security role both in terms of investigating the attack and using its intelligence network to track potential threats. The chief executive of Coris Bank, a leading lender in Burkina Faso, said he was confident the government could reassure potential investors that the country was safe. But that depends on whether or not the Islamists strike again.
Everything depends on what the government does following this attack to reassure as quickly as possible our international partners and friends of the country to continue to come here. I think the authorities are fully aware of this, and they will take the necessary action to ensure security and avoid a repeat.
Philosophy teacher in Ouagadougou High School, Adama Wadrelgo, said the government needed to prove it was transparent and trustworthy, then people will follow. He said he believes Sankara's revolutionary spirit, visible in the 2014 uprising, could now help the country overcome the militant threat.
I think there are resources here. Now it's all about how to mobilize them and how to steer them in the right direction. The Burkinabe people are proud to contribute to the government as long as they know the money is being put to good use.
Political uncertainty has slowed an economy already hurt by a fall in global gold prices. But one senior security official says the attack would put security at the top of the public agenda.
Here in Nigeria, energy experts have called for global oil regulatory body OPEC to take a stance in the face of the plunging oil prices and persuaded member countries to act fast and salvage the situation. For several months now, global crude oil prices have nosedived. The cause is that a global supply glut is ravaging revenues.
Nigeria ranks as Africa's largest producer of oil and the 6th largest in the world. and has been hit hard. Although the demand for the country's crude has fallen drastically, Nigeria is not cutting down on oil production. Energy expert Odon Omofoman does not support a slash either, but he says it's high time for the global oil regulatory body OPEC to take a stand in the face of the current realities.
Nigeria's decision not to cut her production in view of the other members, the other OPEC members' decision not to also cut theirs is, in my view, the correct decision. However, OPEC members need to watch it. There's a significant glut in the market. A $20 barrel oil will not do anybody good. So at some point, they need to sit down and decide on how best to cut production to start ramping up the prices.
Crude accounts for about 90% of Nigeria's export and 70% of overall government revenue. As the situation lasts, the authorities seem helpless. In spite of the persistent crash in oil prices, pump prices of petrol still remain high in Nigeria. Omofoman sees this as a unique opportunity for Nigeria to be focused on developing and improving its local refining capabilities.
You would ask, low oil price, pump prices are still high. It's very simple. Nigeria imports a significant amount of petroleum products, and that importation is done paying with dollars. We don't have dollars. Importing refined products, petroleum products, takes 35% of our foreign exchange. So what that means is that if we developed and improved our local refining capabilities, we would save on that foreign exchange, and we can reap the benefits of low oil prices in terms of pump prices of fuel.
As producers cut investment in oil production, many say it's about time Nigeria looks into the opening channels of investment in gas production, as that could be a viable business alternative.
More on the oil market after the break. Do stay with us.